Welcome to another episode of Reason for Truth. I'm your host, Stevie Garofalo. You know here, truth comes first, well, the reasons come last, but we're always and constantly learning, because if we're not learning, we're not teaching. We're at least not teaching well. I'm your host, Stevie Garofalo. Welcome to the program today. I'm going to share with you today two blogs written by Del Potter. You can follow him in Delology at Twitter. He writes some of our blogs here, part of Reason for Truth team, and he wrote a couple different blogs, which I'm going to share with you today. First one's called Visually Rotten by Del Potter, MAA. He wrote it September 9th, 2020. This is what Del wrote. He says, "We're being conformed to this visual world of being transformed by the renewing of your mind with the written word from the world." Romans 12:2. Yeah, reason for concern. Number one, I like the way Del does this. Reason for concern, like reason for truth. Reason for concern is that from inquisitiveness, its imagination, to fascination, we have moved away from the deductions of the mind that are self-determined through reading and writing comprehension to the reduction of the mind through barrage of still in motion images that have been predetermined without regard for individual terms, that's public, or for their formation of value-based objective moral private concept. After Jesus explained to his disciples that he came to fulfill the law and not to do away with it, you can read that in Matthew 5:17, Jesus says this, "But I say to you that everyone who looks at a woman with lust for her has already committed adultery with her in his heart." Matthew 5:27-28 leads us to reason for pause, as Del writes. In literature-based culture, the terms Jesus uses here are quite ambiguous. Terms such as woman, lust, or adultery would have been truly clear written terms in the Mosaic written law. So Jesus takes it up a notch and he clarifies with written public terms and how it can be and would be used visually, and how it can and would visually affect the formation of private concepts they would have already formulated in their mind, because in reality, women exist and they can be pleasing to look at it in good, sacred, or bad, lustful manner. So to the nominalists, these are merely vague, unrealistic words, but in reality, these are words to describe objectively real concepts that we see taking place in reality, like adultery. Adultery doesn't really materially exist, but it does exist in the minds of those who physically perform it. Interesting. See that? Notice how Del wrote physically perform it in the mind. It's kind of like role-playing. That is why I think Jesus says in the very next verse, if your right eye makes you stumble, tear it out and throw it from you. It's better to lose one of the parts of your body than your whole body be thrown into hell. Matthew 5:29. Now for reason for truth, Del writes, Jesus has given us a very early insight and warning on how moving from a literature-based culture to a image-based culture can affect our use in terms of formation of concepts. For reading something affects only the person's individual reading. But if it's image-based, not only does it affect the person, but how it can affect all those who are within visual distance. At one time, immoral graffiti and language was limited to what it was written or by the walls of bathroom stalls, but now in heavily image-based society, it's all over the television. The internet chat rooms where not just individual persons would be affected, but millions all at once, right? Without a doubt, the world is twisting the terms and garbling the concepts from quality and quantity, from intention to the most unlimited use of horrible extensions. See, the problem with evil isn't so much evil in and of itself, written anyways. The problem is that those who acquire images in their head and possess it for themselves, that becomes a big issue. You know, we talk about word pictures. James points this out quite clearly when he says, each one of us is tempted when he is carried away and enticed by his own lust. Then when lust has conceived, it gives birth to sin, and when sin is accomplished, it brings forth death. James 1:14-15. See, in an image-based culture, it allows for constructs, confines, and it ends up conforming us in the world's predetermined, immoral, I would say sinful standards. See, Romans 12:2 says, without regard for our individual terms, those are public things, that's something that's public, or for our formation of our value-based, objective, moral, private concept found only in the Logos of God, which should be the sole image stamped and coined on the tablets of our hearts. Matthew 22:17-21. And Del writes, now this is an image I long to see. Amen. Well put, Del. I tell you what, it comes to flourishing in our world that the things that go into our mind are the things that come out of our mind. If we're watching porn, that's probably what's going to come out eventually, in adultery and doing immoral things. If we see good things coming into our eyes, through our mind and our heart, and by the way, anything that comes to your heart always comes to your mind first, which in many cases, most cases, comes through your eyes or your ears, could as well be through your touch. That's just the truth. So we have to be careful. What Dell is saying here is that, years ago there was a common sense of decency. Let me just interpret that, where people had more biblical values, certainly here in the United States. And so as a result, what happened is what they saw visually was limited, and it was just not accepted or tolerated. When you saw people dressing in ways that were more provocative, you saw that quite less often. It's amazing to me how often you'll see young ladies and young men, I guess, dressing in ways that draw attention to them. They don't. I certainly, for the young ladies, or ladies, period, young and old, they don't like it quite often when they gain the attention that they're garnering through their actions, the way they carry their body language, and certainly by the clothes that they wear. Don't get that, but that's just the way it is. Love-hate thing, I guess, for them. At the end of the day, if we're seeking God, it's not about what we wear. It's why we wear it. It's how we present ourselves. So people say, well, that's legalistic. What you can say, I can't wear shorts. Not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is let's make sure that in an image-based culture that we are presenting good images, godly images, because God is beauty, and anything that is beautiful in and of itself reflects God. Anything that is not reflecting God or God's beauty is not beautiful at all. So that's what Dell's speaking about today. In our image-based culture, we've gone crazy in terms of what we've allowed to come over the internet, our phones, and the televisions. May we turn back to God, begin to put good images once again, make bad images disappear from our culture and from the airwaves. So God's blessings to you. Hope this has been helpful to you. If you happen to be listening on podcast, on iTunes, give us 5 stars if you would. Make sure you subscribe. But if you're a YouTuber, you can do a couple things for us. Number one, make sure you share this. Go ahead, hit that little share button, tell your friends about us. But I tell you what, 2 important things. Go ahead and subscribe, and then reach down. 2 things. Subscribe, boom, reach down, bam. Hit that little thing called the alert bell. It's a little bell on there. God's blessings to you. I'm your host, Stephen Garofalo, and this is your Reason for Truth for today.